a road of plenty if you share your load. The sun is shining on the darkest day. The road is open, now I find my way. The word is freedom from all the pain. Well, welcome everybody. This is something of a new experiment to try. And it's a delight to have Ean Jones here for a short interview. And I've known Ean now for a few years. And I've been aware that there'd been some great creativity going on over the last couple of years or so. And just in this past week, Ean has released his debut album. An interesting time to release your album, Ean.
Hi, Pete. How are you doing? Yes, absolutely. Powerless over these things, I suppose. I mean, I could have delayed the release, but I thought, well, no, that was the original intention. And, well, why not? And perhaps it can, and it already has, I do believe, brought a little bit of cheer to a few people. The response I've had back from it so far has been pretty positive, very overwhelmingly positive, to be honest. So, yeah, I mean, perhaps it was meant to be. So I'm just running with that.
That sounds good. The album's called A Long Time Coming, which is a pretty loaded title, if ever there was one. So I wonder if you want to just tell us a little bit about the genesis of the album itself.
Yes, it's been a long time since I produced any music. I have produced music throughout my life. I'm from a musical background. I was playing music when I was 6 years old. But the actual production of a whole album, I've never produced an entire album 100% of my own material. And it's just taken a long, long time. It was 20 months in the recording, but quite a few years in the conception and the inception and the actual application. But here we are, and it was released on the 27th of March, and it's out there on iTunes, Spotify, and all the different mediums, and it's free to stream, and of course it's available to download if you like it.
I will say I have bought my copy from iTunes. There is the image I've got behind me is the cover art that you have for the album. Where is that picture? Where did you take? Is it one you took yourself, or is it?
Yes, I took that in a lake in Iceland. And that's a borrowed guitar from a guy who I rented an Airbnb off. And he's a musician as well. And I said, can I borrow your guitar and see whether I get some inspiration from driving around Iceland in my little hire car for a 4-day holiday that I booked. I'd never been to Iceland. It was on my to-go-to list. And I ended up coincidentally completely lost. I got lost in Iceland, and I ended up this sounds crazy, and it's a long story, so I won't bore you with it, but I ended up 120 miles from my original destination. Once I realized how lost I was, I kind of just kept going, and the beauty of that was I went right through the center of Iceland, which I did not plan to do, and I found this beautiful lake, and it just reached out to me and it said, take this picture. And right there and then I decided that was going to be the cover for the album. And that was about 2-3 years ago now. So yeah.
Wow. Well, it's a stunning image. It's a great, perfect image for the album art. And did you write while you were in Iceland as well?
Yes, I did. I got to my destination, which is a little place called Blundless, which I would never have got to had I not got lost. And I got there just as the sun was setting, and just quickly pulled up at the harbour wall, pulled out the guitar, sat with my legs dangling over the harbour, watching the sun. Never been so far north in my life. And I wrote a song called Top of the World, which is not on the album.
Next one.
I am actually working on the next album. I'm 3 tracks into the. I'm going to. I think the working title is That Easy Second Album. Because it's flowing. I've got about 6 or 7 songs already for it, but ironically, Top of the World hasn't been fully written yet. But now that we've had this conversation, I will work on it. And
that sounds good. That sounds good. Now, what I've been listening to the album the last few days, and it's quite diverse in kind of musical styles that you're drawing on. There's kind of rock, there's folk, there's a bit of rhythm and blues in there. It was that kind of deliberate strategy, or you picking on particular styles that you enjoy? What was the story there?
I wanted to do an album that was just what came out from the heart. I mean, I could have called the album From the Heart to the Heart, because that's something I'd never done. I've been commercially in music all my life. I've made a living out of the music business. So previously, when I used to write music, there was always a subtext. There was always an underlying factor. Sometimes it was commerciality. So it'd be right to order. It would be right things that would please people in a style that might be suitable of the day. Oh, it's such and such a time. We'll put this sort of instrument in. That's current at the moment. This time I thought, no, this is just going to be whatever comes out. The lyrics that come out, the music that comes out, and just record it. I was very lucky. I recorded it in a recording studio in a place called Clola, just south of Bintlaw, with a guy called Steve Curtis, who's got a very professional studio. And he's got that in a steading just outside his house. Beautiful place. And he is a very peaceful, spiritual person. Just one of those laid back guys, and that we fitted perfectly. And he was also happy to take 20 months over it, although we did plan for 6 months.
How? Yes, I mean, what's the? Did you go for take a few days at a time to spend there and do a particular song, or were you kind of bouncing between different things?
It's a very good question. Yeah, I don't think I could have done periods of time. So really, I went up there for usually about 1 day a week, occasionally 2 days a week, and we would do probably a 7 to 8 hour session, and that was enough. He would then work on it himself, and of course, with the internet, you can send versions that you've got to, and then I could have a listen to it. I could send it back saying, "Can we try these tweaks?" And then do that once or twice, and then I'd go back up and record it. I had to be there to record the vocals, and he came up with a lot of very good stuff. Some of those lead guitar parts, in fact, I'm not doing him credit. All of those lead guitar parts are all Steve. Although sometimes he would say, "Go on." I'd be humming a guitar part as I heard it, a solo in my head, and he stopped me one day and he said, "Go on, just hum that so I can get some ideas from what you're humming." So I hummed a guitar solo, and he said, "I like that. Can I play it?" So I did actually have some input on that as well. But Steve he's a drummer as well, so quite a bit of the drums is him. But the rest, pretty much myself, my vocals, my guitar, my keyboards, and the program as well.
Yeah, I was wondering what whether there'd been other musicians involved in it. So thanks for sharing that. Mostly the two of you.
Just the two of us at the song.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah, the single that's out is this first track on the album's "A New Beginning."
Mm.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about that song?
Yeah, a new beginning. My life is back on the road. That was again every song on there has some spiritual meaning. It's a story of my life over the last few years, focusing particularly in the last 5 years. And as you will well know, as we've had this conversation before, I made a decision in 2015 to stop drinking alcohol. And I would say to a large degree the fun had stopped, and it was starting to just become a little bit too strong a part of my life. So I made a decision. Let's see what life would be like with no alcohol, not a little bit, or not moderation. Just cut it out and see how life would be. And I found, to my pleasant surprise, that it was much better. I did a lot more. I created more, felt better physically, mentally, spiritually. And consequently, all 12 tracks of the album are about, some songs are a little bit deeper and how it was at the time. Most songs are about what it's like now, because life is good generally, and it's certainly a lot better than it was when I was just using it very habitually. And I know I'm not the only person in the world, Peter, that probably uses alcohol a little bit more than they should. But for me, it was a decision to just say enough's enough, and I never planned to do it for the rest of my life. But this is kind of where I'm at now. I don't really want to drink again, and not setting myself any massive targets. But one day at a time will do for me. And it's been a few days now since July the 13th. No, it's July the 23rd. Sorry, I can't remember my own date. July the 13th, 2015. It's been great.
Yeah, that's good. Well, there's definitely there's a running thread through the whole album of a kind of hopefulness, a kind of recapturing some of the meaning of life, and there's also one of the songs that's about kind of letting go. Gotta let go, is it? Or what's behind that?
Yeah, that I believe that I've always been a spiritual person who has lacked spiritual connectivity at times. I've always wanted to be a spiritual person, but possibly didn't quite know how to achieve this. And what I didn't realize is that by wanting and demanding something, it doesn't necessarily happen. So I've got to let go. The lyrics are, I've got to let go, I've got to turn it over, stop running that show. And I think it was when I accepted that there was a power greater than myself in the world, in the universe, and more importantly, when I felt a connection with that higher power. I mean, I've always believed in a higher power. Every day I go out and I look up at the millions of stars in I've not yet met a power that can build billions of stars. Until that day, I'll pretty much accept that the creator of our universe is a higher power than me. But I never felt connected until I started to try and connect. And when I started to try and connect and being open-minded to what came back, then my life started to change, Peter, and for the better. So letting go was important for me, yeah.
Yeah. And part of that kind of reconnecting is captured in one of the songs, 400 Steps, which you'd sent me a kind of advanced copy of it some months ago, and then swore me to silence, that I couldn't say anything about it to anyone. So it's great to be able to share it now with others. But that is very much about the local, kind of reconnecting locally.
You ever were away from me. My eyes were open, but I couldn't see. No, I couldn't see. Your love was waiting for me, patiently just loving me. And now you have given me a way of life that is meant to be.
Yes, and it's absolutely about Ferryhill Church, and it's about the people in the church, it's about you. It's about it's about the whole package, really. I live well, as you can guess, 400 steps from Ferryhill Church. And when I first decided to stop drinking, it was a little bit tricky because I'd drank for quite a while and I got used to drinking, and then all of a sudden, I wasn't, and I was having to kind of fill in those gaps of when you're socializing, and I was doing plenty of that. And it was all involving alcohol. So suddenly I had to kind of do other stuff, and I thought, well, it was a very odd feeling. It's almost like losing your best friend who you knew wasn't really your best friend. So I thought, well, I'll find some ways of perhaps trying to increase that spirituality. I thought, well, why don't you go to what is exactly on offer for you? And it's only a few steps down the road. And I thought, right, I shall go one morning and I shall count the steps. And I did, and I went to one of your services. It wasn't yourself that day, so it was one of the shorter ones, Peter.
Thank you.
And and it worked out to be 400 steps. And I came back and I was inspired by everything. I've always liked churches. I've always liked music. The music was great, and I loved the karaoke. I mean, I've not been to church for a long time. That was fantastic. Because singing hymns to karaoke, that's rock and roll, man. The sound system was brilliant. So from a musician point of view, and the message was lovely. And I'm not going to pretend that I'm a Christian. I'm an agnostic on a spiritual path, as we all are. When you said that once as well, I remember saying I was probably semi-apologetic about that, and you said, no, we're all on a spiritual path. We all get there in our own way. And I thought, well, what a lovely, open-minded, welcoming, inclusive thing to say, and that drew me back. I felt right there, and I have been back a few times since. Not as many times as I probably would like to. I was hosting a Sunday morning help meeting for other people as well, so that took me away from that option. But no, now that we're speaking, I shall make a point of once we can, of course.
Yes.
And yeah, absolutely.
We're available online. Don't worry. I think it's the last song on the album is Always Been There For Me.
Mm.
Now that, for me, so you wouldn't use this language maybe, but it felt very much like a prayer to me, the kind of the language that you were using in that. Something I would think of, yeah, that's how it felt. So I don't know, is that how it kind of felt to you?
No.
No.
To be perfectly honest with you, on that particular case, what I was doing, whilst you were saying what you're saying, I was thinking through the lyrics of how that could be interpreted that way, and I see exactly where you're coming from. And you've already given me a thought about that song in a different context, but no, it was actually about another person.
Right.
There's somebody who stuck with me through thick and thin.
Mm-hmm.
And Always Been There For Me was very much about that person. But yes, now you say it, Peter. I'm thinking how that could very easily be about, your higher power.
Yeah, I mean, I find it a lot in the act of preaching. You let something out there, and you have no control over how people hear it once it's out there. So.
Subjective, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. How is the album, the release of the album, kind of fitting in with the rest of your work and your daily life? I mean, I know we're all somewhat more restricted at the moment than we otherwise would be. Yeah, how is that kind of playing into the rest of life?
At the moment, it's okay. I've been back in Aberdeen around about a week now. And I work from home anyway, and often spend quite a lot of hours working from home, maybe do one walk a day, maybe go to the supermarket once a day, if that. So it doesn't feel that different at the moment. But I'm sure if you ask me that question in 3 weeks' time, or 3 weeks' time, then I may have a different answer. But at the moment, it's kind of okay. Work-wise, well, yeah, it's not a challenge yet, and I'm still writing music, still be able to promote the music, and that's an interesting concept as well, promoting the music, because of course, perhaps the people that I would like to hear it might just be finding themselves with a little bit more time on their hands. I mean, I don't know the proof of the pudding is in the eating, but the release was on the 27th, and the album, to my utter and total surprise, actually reached number 11 on the iTunes singer-songwriter charts, which is the main one for people in my genre globally. And I was that was a UK chart, sorry, I say globally. It gives the wrong impression. That was number 11 globally, number 11 in the UK charts, but it's globally accepted as main chart. And that is, I think, down to people having had a time to listen to it on Spotify, audition it, and decide to buy it, because there was a spike on the day it was released, a lot more than I thought would be.
Yeah, that's great. That's wonderful. And will there be any live performances of some of the songs once we're back into some sense of normality?
There will be. I mean, come September, I'm already doing some rehearsals. I was already doing this with a couple of other musicians, and we had targeted originally June, but I think we'll maybe make that September, possibly October. But I'm looking to try and put together one or two other singer-songwriters and do something individually, maybe having like an hour of 4 or 5 singer-songwriters just alternating between us. So that's something I'd like to do in the next 2 or 3 weeks, definitely.
That sounds fun. That sounds really good. And you say that you're already working on another album to come.
Yes, I am. And sorry, while I'm still thinking about that, to remember that the offer to come and do a wee freebie at church is still very much on the table, Peter.
Indeed, we will hold you to that once things return to normality. I think that would be a wonderful evening of celebration for folks to do. So yeah, that would be really nice. That's great. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure hearing a little bit about the album, what's gone into it, and the making of it, and to actually have it out there. It must be just a wonderful sense of accomplishment, relief, and then I guess a kind of, right, what now?
Yeah, you've pretty much summed it up. That's exactly the process that I went through, and I'm sure that I'm not unique there. What now is getting it out there. I've already had a message back from BBC introducing, saying that the track's been listened to. They quote that as a good start, and we'll let you know if we start playing it. So that's not a rejection letter. That's a good start.
No.
And I've had a few of those in the past, so I know what they look like. Or even worse, not having the rejection letter and nothing. Sometimes you're better knowing. So it's I've been emailing people, contacting people, and obviously you've got the internet now. You've got platforms like Spotify. And don't get me wrong, and I earn 0.075 pence for every Spotify stream, but it's getting out there. You can put your songs on Spotify playlists of other people. That's quite a lot of work, but I should be doing that. And really just using this time, there's a little bit of extra time I've got to double the efforts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a whole different kind of world, isn't it, for getting the music out now?
It certainly is. And obviously this virus is creating a different environment, although I'm also drawing a lot of positives from that as well. I'm seeing people come together in ways that they wouldn't normally do. I'm seeing older people get online that they wouldn't normally think of doing. Every cloud has a silver lining, although, of course, this is tragically sad. There are so many lives already gone, and there are going to be just so many more. It's heart-wrenching, but, there are one or two for the future, I believe, little peaks of sunshine coming through there that will continue to create improvement in people's lives long after this is finished. Yeah.
Well, the album's all about hope, and we need hope at the moment. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And how has it affected you, if you don't mind me asking? I know you're interviewing me, but it would be quite nice to know how you're getting on.
Yeah, we're challenged as a family at the moment, but and church life is looking very different. We're still doing worship online, and this you might be interested in this, Ian. We tried a virtual choir for the first time for this last Sunday as a kind of experiment. It worked really well. There was a lot of work in the putting everything together, the editing of it afterwards. So that was kind of fun. So we might do something more with that. So we have to be very creative and do things in a totally different way, while still kind of holding on to some of the, traditional practices that people enjoy. And then in the community, trying to help organize some response to particularly those who might be alone or vulnerable. So we're trying to take a lead there with the 3 other congregations in the area to do that. So yeah, life is very different. It's still as busy, but it's completely looks different. But there we are. We need to do what we can do in these circumstances.
Oh, that's fantastic. And Ferryhill Church is very lucky to have somebody who's so media tech friendly as well. That really makes a difference. I've noticed that. I mean, I noticed that back in the beginning with your newsletters, which were so professional that they could have come from a Saatchi and Saatchi. And so that's not every church somebody who's able to do what you're doing at the moment.
It has stood us in good stead, especially I think we're now 4 years of doing the live streaming. That has stood us in very good stead at this situation, that we're already well used to doing that. And so whereas quite a few of my colleagues are having to grapple with this in the moment, we've had years of practice of it. It does help for sure.
Excellent.
Well, Ian, thanks so much for joining me for this wee experiment, and it's been great. And I do recommend anyone having a wee listen to the album on whatever way you can find it. And there are a couple of tracks that are just on YouTube. Is that right? As a kind of as well.
Yes, the key is to do a search for my artist name, which is EanJ. Ian is spelled with an E. It's an unusual spelling. It's EAN, followed just by the letter J, EanJ.
Yeah.
Starting point is actually the website, which is EanJ.uk.
Simple, easy to remember. And you're on Facebook as well. I think there's a page.
Absolutely, yeah. fb.com, Ean Jones Music.
Brilliant. All right, I think we've covered all bases there. Thanks, Ian, for joining me. It's been a real pleasure. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you asking me. See you soon, Peter.
Okay, cheers. Bye.
You gotta let go.